The Prompt Loom. Welcome to the Museum of Early Cognitive Technologies. Like many museum exhibits, this one asks us to step back in time and consider how people of the early 21st century encountered a new form of writing technology. The year is 2126. This exhibit invites you to walk through a series of galleries, exploring one of the most influential writing technologies of the early 21st century. As we move from room to room, we'll examine the cultural conditions that made this technology possible, the long lineage of systems that led to its development, the way it reshaped writing practices, and the questions it raised about literacy, authorship, and meaning. Historians now refer to this technology as the Prompt Loom. When it first appeared, however, it was not described in such dramatic terms. Most people simply called it a chatbot, a writing system, or artificial intelligence. Over time, something deeper became clear. These systems were not simply producing sentences. They were writing and weaving language. Instead of composing every line themselves, humans began designing prompts, structured instructions guiding the machine's response. The human shaped intention, tone, and boundaries. The machine produced the language. To understand how this shift occurred, we begin by looking backward. In the 19th century, the Jacquard loom used punch cards to separate design from execution, allowing intricate textile patterns to be produced mechanically. The idea of programmable instructions later inspired early pioneers like the mathematician Charles Babbage, who imagined a machine called the analytical engine that would follow symbolic instructions using punch cards. Although Babbage's machine was never fully built, the concept endured. Machines could follow instructions. Machines could execute symbolic operations independent of human inscription. Nearly 2 centuries later, this same principle appeared in an unexpected place, in writing. Text was no longer written. It was directed, shaped. It was woven. Welcome to the Prompt Loom. Let's begin our visit. In this gallery, we will see the conditions that made the Prompt Loom possible. By the early 2000s, writing had become constant. Emails, reports, discussion boards, text, messages, and social media posts filled everyday life. Writing was no longer occasional, it was continuous. Digital platforms transform writing into a constant stream of communication. Documents were revised endlessly. Messages circulated instantly. Writing became embedded in nearly every aspect of work, education, and human life. Yet, this moment was not defined by communication alone. At the same time, another transformation was unfolding. Machine learning systems were improving. Massive data sets were expanding. Computational power was increasing rapidly. Technology companies were investing heavily in artificial intelligence. Seen historically, this moment was not simply an overload, it was convergence. Communication demand, technical capability, and economic incentive were aligning. Communication needs, technological innovation, and writing practices were not developed separately. They were shaping one another. Gallery 2, the accumulation. This gallery traces the technological lineage behind AI writing. There is no single invention that created it. Instead, it emerged from decades of experimentation. In 1966, computer scientist Joseph Wensbaum created a program called ELIZA. ELIZA simulated a therapeutic conversation by responding to user input with scripted patterns, like a user might say, "I feel unhappy." ELIZA might respond, "Why do you feel unhappy?" The system did not understand language. It followed rules. Yet many users experience the interaction as meaningful. Humans are inclined to attribute intelligence to systems that generate convincing language patterns. Over the following decades, computational models evolved. Neural networks scaled. Statistical language systems improved. Training data multiplied exponentially. By the early 2020s, generative language systems entered everyday AI writing. It was a threshold moment. Research, infrastructure, and public access were converging. The role of the writer began to shift. Writing meant designing better instructions rather than producing text directly. These shifts would soon move beyond computing into everyday writing and into classrooms. Room 3, the practice shift. In this room, we examine how writing practices changed once generative writing systems entered everyday life. Not everyone agreed on what this transformation meant. Some saw it as liberation. Others warned of de-skilling. Some others described it as collaboration. Others feared automation. But gradually, a new rhythm of writing emerged. Prompt, generate, revise, regenerate, edit, verify. Fluent text became abundant. Judgment became rare, and therefore valuable. Schools and universities were amongst the first institutions to confront the implications of AI writing. Was it assistance cheating? Was it collaboration? Or was it a new form of literacy? Policies emerged. Detection tools spread. Students experimented. Faculty debated. Assessment practices began to shift. Oral defenses occurred. Draft documentation. Faculty continued to debate again. There were reflective annotations, disclosure statements. Literacy itself was being renegotiated. From the perspective of 2126, the prompt loom appears less like a rupture and more like the turn in a long spiral of technological change. In this room, we look at the spirals of technologies. The revolution began. The printing press, the typewriter, the word processor, hypertext, generative AI. Fluency became easy. Judgment became central. In a world where machines could generate endless text, meaning itself became scarce. So, what endured? In the final gallery, we see discernment. In a world where machines could generate endless text, Meaning itself became scarce. What endured? Discernment, ethical awareness, clear purpose, accountability. The question was never really whether machines could write. The question was how humans could choose to write with them. What kinds of writing will we continue to cultivate? What forms of effort will we still value? Text technologies did not simply carry our words, they reorganized our thinking. The future of writing will not be determined by the tool, it will be shaped by what we choose to reward. The tools may change, but the responsibility for meaning will always remain with us. The future of writing is in your hands. Discernment, ethical awareness, and thoughtful judgment may become the most important forms of literacy we carry forward. Creating the Prompt Loom allowed me to synthesize many ideas explored throughout this course about how technology shaped the way humans write and communicate. One of the concepts that resonated most strongly with me was the idea that writing technologies do not simply make communication easier. They reorganize the cognitive processes that underlie writing itself. Walter Ong's work helped me recognize that early technological shift from print to digital media transforms not only how we produce text, but how we conceptualize knowledge and authorship. Rather than viewing generative AI as a disruption, I began to see it as part of a longer trajectory, a historical trajectory of technologies that reshape literacy practices. The metaphor of the Prompt Loom emerged to capture this idea. Just like the jacquard loom separated design from execution in textile production, prompt-based AI systems separate intention from inscription and writing. Working in a multimodal format also challenged my own habits as a writer. I tend to rely primarily on written explanation and spoken narration. In this project, I attempted to extend beyond those preferences by incorporating visual storytelling and spatial design through the structure of a museum exhibit. The readings across this course collectively reinforced a central thought. Technologies of communication do not simply transmit ideas. They shape the conditions under which thinking takes place. From Ong's exploration of orality and literacy to Bolter's discussions of how new media refashions earlier forms, to Rumsey's reflections on meaning in an age of digital abundance, the course repeatedly demonstrated that literacy evolves alongside the tools that support it. Ultimately, the project reinforces a central theme of the course. Writing technologies are never neutral. Even in the age of generative AI, the responsibility for meaning remains human. Discernment, ethical awareness, and thoughtful judgment may become the most important forms of literacy we can carry forward. Reference page. AI assistance. Generative AI tools were used as an assistive technologies during the development of this project. The ideas, research, narration, and creative interpretation remain my own. Visual materials included in this project were drawn from publicly available image repositories, and several images were generated using AI tools for illustrative purposes. All visuals are used for educational purposes within this academic assignment. The Prompt Loom 2126.